Hi guys, my name is Nakibur Rahman and this is my friend Itisham Kazim. He has done his degree in English literature from Punjab University. Today we are going to talk about one of the favorite novels across countries, 1984. If some of you people have not read it, let me summarize it for you. It's actually a dystopian novel written by George Orwell in 1947. It follows the character Winston, who falls in love with Julia, then he is imprisoned, and then he transforms into one of the members of the party, which is a dictatorial regime ruled by the Big Brother. As far as I have read about the British literature, Virginia Woolf and George Orwell are my favorites. I have not come across somebody else who are so observant of the reality we were living in or of the reality we are living now. So when I read Animal Farm, I was so intrigued by it. It was the second book that I have read, and I was intrigued by how animals talk to each other. I didn't know the political background behind it, how it's criticism upon the Russian government, but I was just interested in how the animals communicate with each other, how they plan and do stuff. So I had it in my mind to read 1984, but this far I didn't come across it. And then fortunately, Itisham Kazim gave me the book and I read it. And for me, it was an amazing read. So when I started reading the novel, I was fascinated by his language and how in a few sentences he builds characters. He makes lifelike characters. And another good thing about it was that it's on the one hand it's a political essay, but on the other hand it's a literary piece where we happen to read about a love story, a romance. So there are three phases that I love in the story. The love story between Winston and Julia, which we have already talked about, and then I loved that twist in the story where Oceania is at war with Eurasia or sometimes with East Asia. So in one of the dialogues that Julia has with Winston, she says that actually Oceania is not at war with anybody. It's just a propaganda, and it's Oceania that is throwing bombs in its own area just to keep the people frightened, just to keep them in control. So that was kind of interesting that, there is a dictatorial regime where the party or the regime is killing its own people just to keep them in check, just to keep them in fear. And then the third interesting thing was the phase after imprisonment, when when O'Brien tries to manipulate him, shape his mind in a different way, actually condition him according to their own rules, where he tries to inculcate in him that 2 and 2 makes 5. 2 and 2 making 5 is nonsense, he believes. And then the other thing, that everything is in our mind, that nothing is outside of our mind. And then we can make laws, like the party can make natural laws that is controlling the universe. But I could see who is insane. It was actually O'Brien, who is totally out of his wits. But you can see how conditioned and how twisted his view of the world is.
So Naqib, I have a question. What makes a story interesting? Generally.
So, what makes a story interesting?
Yes.
For me, it's quite simple what makes a story interesting. You have to see whether the story is dead or alive. Okay? By dead or by alive, what I mean, and I will give you some examples. That the language matters. Like the language in 1984 is so realistic and it's so believable. I have read 2 other books which are about the dictatorial regimes, like The Land of Green Plums by Herta Muller and then Margaret Atwood's book, its name is The Handmaid's Tale. I have read these two books. You can see that they are writing from imagination. Though they might have gone through such times, but you can see that they are writing from their minds, you know. With George Orwell and with this book, you can see as you start to believe him as if he has been to Oceania really, and he has done some journalism there, like the way he talks about Newspeak and their prison and how the whole society works and how the system is run by the party. So looking at all these things, you can see that the story is alive. And for me, Tolstoy's books are alive, like The War and Peace and Anna Karenina. And there are other examples where the stories are dead, where the novels are dead, but I would not name them because
नहीं, you have
some
to
people.
कुछ नहीं होता.
But the way it's put, the way it's written, the details, you know, the language and the metaphors, all of these things indicate one thing, and it's as if it's a political essay, as if it's a, you know, a piece of journalism, as if it's real. So I know that it's a fictional work, it's imaginative, but the language, the story makes it real and believable.
Nikib, I have another question for you. Can we say it a no man's land between fiction and non-fiction?
Yeah, I think we can say that, because on the one hand we know that it's fictional, but we also know that it's so believable that we can call it, you know, non-fictional. Though we cannot, but it's believable and it's real.
So, it's a
you
no
can
man
say,
land between fiction and non-fiction.
yeah, no man land between fiction and non-fiction. And you have found a very good name for it. So I have told you what makes a story interesting. What's your perspective?
मेरी नज़र में किसी भी कहानी का दिलचस्प होना वेरी करता है बंदे की अपनी चॉइस पर. The element of interest of any story is actually subjective.
Yeah.
It's not objective.
What do you mean by subjective?
Subjective means it's personal. There are no such criterias. बिल्कुल
So you
ऐसे ही
mean
है.
that the way we read a story defines the story for us, you know?
Yes. ऐसे कभी भी नहीं हो सकता कि हम किसी कहानी का अच्छा होना या बुरा होने के लिए कुछ खास उसूल बना सकें. कुछ खास, कोई भी कहानी अच्छी या बुरी किसी भी शख्स के एरियाज ऑफ इंटरेस्ट पर बेस करती है. अब मेरे लिए वो तमाम कहानियाँ जिनकी लैंग्वेज बहुत मतलब अगले लेवल की हो, अच्छी लैंग्वेज, ज़रा मुश्किल कह लूँ मैं एक मुश्किल पसंद आदमी हूँ.
This is a Punjabi word, अगले लेवल का word.
अगले लेवल तो अच्छी बात है ना. अगले लेवल की गल कीती है. पश्तो में क्या कहते हैं इसे? स्टाडे राडे रामन.
I don't know Pashto word for it. There are a lot of words that are difficult to be translated.
मेरे लिए वो कहानियाँ दिलचस्प होती हैं जो रियलिस्ट हों, जो मेरे मिजाज के मुताबिक हों, जो मोर फिलोसफिकल हों, पॉलिटिकल हों, और जिनके जो कैरेक्टर्स हैं वो ज़रा डिस्टिंग्विश किस्म के कैरेक्टर हों. मुझे आम लोगों की कहानियों की निस्बत, हालांकि लिटरेचर में कहा जाता है कि वो कहानी मास्टरपीस होती है जो जिसमें आम लोगों की साइकी को, आम लोगों की ज़िंदगी को बयान किया गया. लेकिन मुझे आम लोगों की निस्बत ख़ास लोगों की, डिप्लोमेट्स की, कोर्ट्स की कहानियाँ पसंद है.
Knight errants की. I think you should read the Don Quixote. It's a very distinguished and very different story.
I will
It's about a crazy guy who wanders in the forest and
so मैं ज़रूर पढ़ूँगा इसे.
So the next thing, and it might be the last thing that we are going to talk about, is the unexpected ending of the novel. As we see in most of the novels nowadays, and even in cinema, most of the movies have happy endings, you know. There might happen tragedies in the middle of it, but the ending is usually
Tragic.
a happy ending, you know. But with this novel, he does not follow any trend, and even with his animal form, he does not follow any noun trend. What he does is he gives unexpected endings to his novel, just as it happens in real lives. So what happens in the novel is that, you know, the main character Winston Smith really changes into what the party wants him to, you know. So what do you think about that?
मैं उससे पहले वो दूसरी बात करना चाहूँगा कि हमने एनिमल फार्म की बात की, और वो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग नावल है, बड़ा ज़बरदस्त और बड़ा काबिल ज़िक्र नावल है. उससे पहले एक बड़ा क्लासिकल नॉवेल तो हम उसे नहीं कह सकते, दास्तान कहेंगे या कहानी कहेंगे, जैसे वो पुराने होमर, एलियट, इसिड वगैरह के थे, ओडिसिस। उसका नाम है कलीला व दिमना।
अच्छा।
और मोर देन
इट्स उर्दू और हिंदी?
no, it's Hindi. Okay. And it has been translated into more than 100 languages, 52 languages, don't know, but मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा लैंग्वेजेस में इसका तर्जुमा किया गया है। सबसे पहले ये इंग्लिश में भी फ्रेंच से होकर आया है।
अच्छा।
और आजकल उर्दू में मिलता है, पंजाबी में, बड़ी बड़ी जितनी भी लैंग्वेजेस हैं जिन
Have you read it?
Yes, I have read it.
How is
And
it?
it
What's
was
about?
it's मतलब ये बिल्कुल ऐसे है जैसे एनिमल फार्म था। इसके अंदर कैरेक्टर्स होते हैं, बंदर होते हैं, बाद शेर है, बैल हैं, और उनकी अपनी एक हुकूमत है, और वो इंसानों की तरह आपस में बातें करते हैं, और वो डिप्लोमेसीज हैं उनकी, उनके मामला ऐसे 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 लग रहा है कि जैसे ये सारे के सारे इंसान हैं, लेकिन नहीं, वो इंसान नहीं है, वो जानवर हैं, और वो उनके जो मामलात हैं वो सारे के सारे इंसानों की तरह हैं, और अपनी बातों में, अपनी पॉलिसीज़ में, अपनी स्ट्रेटजीज़ में वो इंसानों को मॉक करते हैं, उन पर तनकीद करते हैं, सटायर करते हैं, और वो कहते हैं कि अगर हम इंसानों जैसे थोड़ी हैं, हम तो ये करेंगे, हम बेवकूफ़ थोड़ी हैं, हम तो ये करेंगे।
It's a critique on human.
यस यस। लेकिन उनके जो जानवरों के अपने मामलात हैं वो जानवरों वाले मामलात नहीं है, वो सारे के सारे मामलात इंसानों वाले हैं। तो ऐसे लगता है कि जैसे उसने ये एनिमल फार्म में जॉर्ज ऑरवेल ने उससे मुतासिर होकर लिखा हो, और ये हो नहीं सकता कि उसने उसको पढ़ा ना हो, क्योंकि वो एक क्लासिकल है और लाजमी। और जॉर्ज ऑरवेल वैसे भी चूँकि इंडिया में रहे हैं, तो
वो पैदा उधर हुआ,
वो पैदा उधर हुए थे, और वो यहाँ पे रह के गए हैं, तो उनको लाजमी पता, बल्कि उनको नहीं, वैसे भी कोई भी बंदा जो लिटरेचर का है उसने लाजमी उसको पढ़ा होता है, अगर पढ़ा नहीं तो सुना तो लाजमी होता है। और इतना बड़ा राइटर, इतने बड़े राइटर से एक्सपेक्ट किया जा सकता है कि उसने उसको लाजमी पढ़ा। तो मैं
By the way, I have not read it. I will read it.
I'll give you surely, मेरे पास पढ़ा हुआ है।
Oh, you have it in hard form.
Yes, I have it.
That's amazing.
लेकिन ये उर्दू में है, इसका इंग्लिश एडिशन भी मिल सकता है।
Yeah, coming back to the question, how did the ending strike you? The tragic ending.
मेरे लिए ये अनएक्सपेक्टेड थी, बिल्कुल ही। मैं चूँकि पीछे पूरी कहानी से एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहा था कि इसकी एंडिंग इस तरह की होगी, जिस तरह वो हमें बिल्कुल हैरान कर देता है। आखिरी पेज तक हम खुद इस चीज़ का अंदाज़ा नहीं लगा सकते कि ये कहानी किस तरफ जाएगी, और खुसूसन एंड वाले चैप्टर पे आकर तो वो बिल्कुल ही कहानी को कभी कभी किसी तरफ लेकर जा रहा है, कभी किसी तरफ लेकर जा रहा है, और वैसे लगता है कि जैसे वो ह्यूमन साइकोलॉजी को बड़ा अच्छी तरह से जानता है जॉर्ज ऑरवेल, और वो ना सिर्फ ह्यूमन साइकोलॉजी को बल्कि अपने रीडर की साइकोलॉजी को बड़े अच्छे तरीके से जानता है कि ये क्या एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं। अगर वो जानबूझकर, जैसे कहते हैं ना कि जो फिक्शनिस्ट होता है वो तख्लीक़कार होता है, वो खुदा होता है, और जो उसके कैरेक्टर होते हैं वो उसकी मखलूक होते हैं, और वो उनकी तकदीर लिखता है वो जैसे चाहे। लेकिन इसने सिर्फ कैरेक्टर्स की तकदीर नहीं लिखी, बल्कि इसने अपने रीडर्स के दिमागों की तकदीर भी लिखी, और एंड तक इस चीज़ को इसने बड़े अच्छे तरीके से निभाया है। मैं एंड बताऊँगा नहीं, जो हमारे व्यूवर्स हैं वो खुद पढ़ेंगे तो उन्हें खुद इस चीज़ का पता चलेगा कि वाक़ईतन जॉर्ज ऑरवेल ने इस चीज़ को बड़े अच्छे तरीके से निभाया।
Yeah, one of the common things about great writers is this thing, that the ending usually strikes you. The ending, it's like a slap across your face. All the books that I have read by Ernest Hemingway, they have such unexpected endings, and when you finish the book you're so saddened, you're so sort of distressed by it, but at the same time you're like, oh, it was a great work of art. So I hope you people read the book. It's very interesting and you will see it for yourself.